This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
When anybody is deciding what they want to do for their life's work, they need to have a passion for whatever it is. So find that passion and then go for it.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It for a Living. I'm Kevin Dubois. Today we've got Ron Sledge from King Engine Bearings. Ron is the performance and technical manager there, and he deals with a lot of product development specifically to the United States. So, Ron, how are you doing today?
Doing great. It's a great day. I'm in the beautiful state of Tennessee.
Okay.
Weather just great.
Nice and green area there, huh?
Yeah, it's just green right now. It's getting greener every day.
Okay, yeah, we're in Texas, so it's green right now, but it will shortly turn brown here when it gets a little hotter.
Yeah.
So, Ron, one of your colleagues, AJ, is one we met here at the Texas 2K event just a couple weeks ago, I guess about a month ago here in Texas. And we kind of talked to him briefly about, doing an interview with you guys as a company. And he set me up with you. And so you guys work together. But I wanted to hear your story. So go ahead and tell me, how did you get involved with cars? And I'm guessing that's kind of how you got involved with King Engine Bearings as well. But why don't you go ahead and fill us in? When did you get started with car stuff?
Golly, I got started with cars back when I was really a little boy. My dad used to take me to the racetrack, the local racetrack, and he was a car fan himself, and he actually was a tool and die maker by trade. So he was very mechanical. It passed it on to me. We went to car events, car shows, some, but mostly racing. And I just developed a love for motorsports, particularly in cars, but basically all of it. But I began at an early age just to like it, and then I sort of have a mind that I like to fix things and work on things and tinker with things, and so that all kind of goes together. But cars just became a passion for me, and I've got a couple of. I got 3 cars right now in my garage that need work on them and restoration right now as we speak.
What have we got in the garage?
Well, I've got 2 70 Mustangs. One is a Mach 1, and one is a plain Jane 302 sports roof car.
All right.
Great cars. And I have a 70 F100 pickup truck.
Okay.
That I'm getting ready to change the engine out in it, and then I'm kind of rebuilding it from a crash.
Okay.
It was my dad's truck, and he passed it down to me.
Okay.
So I've just got a lot going in my own garage.
Very cool. And so what kind of education and background do you have in working on cars? Is it strictly from what your dad taught you, or did you go to a trade school or college or anything like that?
I went to the local university here in Tennessee called Middle Tennessee State University and got a degree in industrial engineering.
Okay.
So anything to do with, industrial kind of aspects of work, just like I said earlier, I like fixing things, and industrial engineering is kind of like that. It's a degree that gives you the skills to make things better, repair, make them more efficient, and so forth. So that's really where I got my formal education. Okay. But the rest of it had just been really just training myself to do the fixing and so forth. My dad taught me some, but most of it I just kind of learned by myself, just by doing.
Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty common theme, especially in the performance world, where a lot of the general maintenance doesn't really carry over as well as people would think. So you got to learn by do.
Yeah, you really have to get in there and actually overcome the fear of, well, what if I screw this up? You have to get in there and work on it and learn, because hands-on, there's nothing replaces hands-on. But I have found that when I'm getting ready to repair something, whatever it be, my lawnmower, my car, my house, whatever, I use the internet a lot to go and just learn from there. I learn from other people's mistakes. I learn from other people's knowledge. And that's a great tool for anybody to go and learn how to do anything, really.
Yeah, that's how I fix my house too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
give us a timeline too, like you coming to King Bearing. Like, is that something you came straight out of college, or is there have you worked at other places?
Oh yeah, I've worked at many other places. My career actually began in the let's just say the automotive aftermarket began in 1973. You can probably say learn from that I'm maybe a pretty old guy, but I started out working for a company, and it was a company called Michigan Engine Bearings. I don't know if anybody in the audience has ever heard of that brand. I began with that company. I started as an industrial engineer, exactly what I studied for. But as I learned when I got to the company, I learned their product. And man, this was kind of like two things came together here. It's a car part and so forth. And I just began working on their product and doing the cataloging, and did some product management skills there to get that company rolling. I actually got that company involved in NASCAR racing back in 1983.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm a NASCAR fan. I love watching the races. I hardly miss a race. But I was at the racetrack at the NASCAR races for 20 or 22 years in a row. I traveled
dedication.
Dedication. I traveled through to the tracks. I've probably been to every single NASCAR track there is, maybe one or two I haven't been to. But anyway, I got started with that company and went on to, there was mergers and buyouts, and another company bought that company, and I got switched over to there, and it's all been in engine bearings. My whole career has been in engine bearings, but most importantly, it's been in racing and motorsports. So that just fit right in with me. It was kind of like the best things came together. And then as far as King Engine Bearings, I came with them in 2010, the latter part of 2010. I worked for a previous company that was not in engine bearings, but that didn't last very long, but it was in motorsports still. So I stayed in that. But anyway, a mutual friend of mine that I met way back in 1976, we got together in 2010, and we started talking, and he was King Bearings was looking for a guy of my qualifications, and so the rest is history. Okay. So I've been here going on 6 years now with King Engine Bearings, and it's been really great. King is kind of I'd say it's kind of a young company in the motorsports market. It's kind of an older company too. It started back in 1960 in Israel. It's an Israel-based company. So we got, when I came on board, sales were at a level, and today we just learned that we have actually doubled our sales in 5 years.
Wow,
so
fantastic.
It's a pretty good track record of increasing our volume, our footprint out in the marketplace. We're becoming, really now we're becoming from the second choice to actually the first choice for many engine builders now. Okay. So we're doing a lot of great things. We're coming out some new applications. We've got a new coated line coming out and so forth. So it's really exciting right now.
Okay. And I want to go back to a little bit. When you were traveling with, and I'm guessing maybe you probably do some of it, but with NASCAR, were you actually doing that as a fan, or was that for the company, the Michigan Engine Bearing?
It started out as me being a fan.
Okay.
And one day at the Michigan Bearing Company, my boss at the time, he was throwing the question out. He was hired to promote the brand Michigan Bearings, and so I worked in the technical department there, the product department, and so he was asking for ideas, and as a team, we were all thinking, and I said, I've got it right here. This is going to do it. And I said, let's get involved in racing. And anytime you get involved in racing, if your product works, people are going to know about it. If you advertise it correctly, and your parts being used in racing engines carries a lot of credibility for your product, and it passes right down to the quality of your product, that the customers can see what's going on, a lot of visibility. So the rest is history there too. Like I said, I spent most of my career in the racing deal, but I actually was a fan.
Okay.
That gave me the idea to present to the company to go forward. We took it and ran with it.
So it's convenient that your job and your passion kind of clashed and worked out well together. So you got to do what you loved while doing what you loved, right?
Yeah, it did. It came together.
Okay.
And it just so happens when I entered that ad for that first company, Michigan Bearings, as an industrial engineer, that was then I actually did engineering work for the company in the facility category, but then I was asked to go into the product area, and then I was asked to make a choice of whether to stay in the industrial side or to go into the product side. And of course, I think I made the right choice there, right decision to go with the product, and it just kind of led, from one thing to another.
Okay.
And I've been with many reputable companies. It goes on from Michigan to Clevite, and then there was also a lot of mergers going on with Vanderbilt merged in there too. Federal Mogul became part of the merger and buyout deal that happened, and then I got out of it in 2005 because I was lured over to another company to do motorsports for a different product.
Okay.
And that lasted about 3 years, and then I came back into the bearing market, and it's where really my home is.
Okay.
It's what I love the best. And
40 years of experience will do that, right?
Yeah, and I've had I've got the most experience there, and so I'm very comfortable with bearings and so forth. So I get to talk to all these racing engine builders out there, get to pick their brain, get to ask them questions about what they need. This is what it's really all about, is going out, and it's like AJ was at Texas 2K with you, and we go to other sporting events. You go out there and you meet the end user, and you find out things that you need to know about how your product's working, maybe something new you need. So that's how development starts, is getting out there in the trenches, talking with all the people, and getting ideas and things you need to come out with and so forth. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I think that's really important, but I think far too little of it is actually done. There's a lot of products that are like questionable, and you wonder why they haven't like fixed issues with them. And
yeah, that's true too.
So, okay, so when you met with one of your friends, a longtime friend, to bring you into King Engine Bearings, was that for you to create like the aftermarket market for them, or is that something that was already there and they just needed somebody to do it, and that was you?
Actually, the guy that I hooked up with was actually doing this himself for the company, and King being a growing company, this fellow went off into a different department. Okay. So they needed to get a replacement person in there, because this guy was going to go on and do something else. So evidently I fit right in there, and we hooked up, and we had known each other for since probably 1976 is when we first met, and we hadn't seen each other in a long time. And I just happened to be at a motorsports trade show, and we ran into each other, and then got to talking and so forth. So it really just came together real easy, and it wasn't really a new department. I just kind of filled the hole.
Okay, gotcha. So you're out of Tennessee? Is that where the facility is that you're working out of?
Yeah, I actually am one of the people in the working world today that work from their home.
Okay.
I have a office in the corner. I just mentioned my garage early. I have an office in the corner of my garage. I have a detached 40 by 60 garage.
Okay.
And I've got my office in there. So with internet hookup and with the internet phone and so forth, all the tools, you know, you can work from anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
I communicate with New Jersey. It's where the USA headquarters is, out of Cedar Grove, New Jersey. It's where AJ is located, and we communicate daily, you know, via the email or our desk phone, our voice over phone. You know, it's real easy. So there's no facility here as far as keying other than just my office.
Awesome. And do you have to travel to the main offices ever? Does that happen quite often, or I don't? I personally have not worked remotely like that, but I have known a lot of people who have. So. Yeah.
In fact, our national sales manager works out of his home in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
So you know, it's just so easy. I mean, the company doesn't have to put you up in their building,
right?
You know, and it makes it real easy for the employee to be, you know, at home. Although I'm kind of separated from my main house, but it's still, you know, I just have maybe 200 feet to walk to work.
Right. No travel time, right?
No traffic. No traffic. On a snow day, I'm there. I don't have to worry about slipping and sliding going 30 miles to an office.
Yep.
So it works out really nice.
Perfect. Okay, so I wanted to touch on some things that, you know, happen in business. And have you ever doubted yourself and, you know, wondered if this isn't going to work? And how do you overcome that feeling?
I can't say as I really have doubted myself and had. I really can't say that I can pinpoint something that where I was unsure or whatever. I mean, we always live with uncertainty, but there's no particular instance that I can say that, you know, I had a lot of fear going into it or anything. So, I mean, that may seem strange, but I really can't come up with anything.
But you've always had like teams to work with and a lot of thought and a lot of methodologies of actually making sure a product is going to be successful go into it. You're not shooting from the hip like a lot of these like small one-off shops are doing, right?
Well, of course, we monitor everything going on in the market. Our competitors, our customers, we listen to our customers a lot. That's one of the main things that helps you get going. That's helped us develop many new items in our product line. Okay. Is listening to the customer, and then we see what the competitor does. We look at the volumes, the vehicle populations of out there. That yep. How many vehicles with this engine were built? How many is out there? Mm-hmm. And we put all that together. And then we decide, that, we really need to do this. So we're kind of, King as a company is kind of conservative in that regard. So I guess I push them a little bit more than they really want me to. But, I feel like that, you're going to make some mistakes here and there, but there's a lot to be said to be first to market. Mm-hmm. If you get out there with the product that is the killer product and you're the only one that has it, you have the advantage of having initially all, the sales from the get-go, mm-hmm. because you're the only one that can supply it. But you have a lot of residual sales opportunity because, people kind of get set in their ways of using certain things and products and so forth. So they want to just go with what works. So a lot of times the guys out there now, they don't want to change anything because it's really not broke.
Right.
Don't fix something that's not broke. But you have to get past that and sort of take some chances every now and then with having something sitting on the shelf that's maybe not moving quite as good as we thought it would, or maybe not moving at all.
Okay.
But I mean, we do a thorough analysis of what we're going to do, and we're pretty, we're 99% sure it's going to go. It's okay. A go.
Very cool. Have you had a worst experience in business?
A worst experience? I guess maybe the worst experience I've had is in 2008, when I lost my job with that company that I went away from when I went away from bearings. That's probably the worst experience I've had. That's the only time I've ever been let go.
Okay.
But it was because of the organization was restructured.
Yeah.
The economy took a downturn, and so that was probably the worst situation that ever happened to me.
Okay. And that's a pretty common theme. Is 2008 was really rough for our whole industry. So.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Okay. So what's something you're doing right now that has you fired up?
Just working on new stuff, going out and talking to customers. I just spent a week in Kansas City last week talking to professional racing engine builders out in that area. I'll be going to California next week doing the very same thing, talking with the engine builders out there, working with local reps, training them, giving them product knowledge, feeding, giving them information. And that's sort of the most exciting thing, is to be able to do that.
Okay.
And then, I do a lot of it on the telephone too. I try to hook up with people that are good in their market, whatever it is. If it's diesel performance, if it's oval track racing, drag racing, whatever area it is that they specialize in, I try to hook up with the best people and talk to them. And a lot of this is also getting feedback for how your product is working.
Yeah.
Too. And so if you hear something that the guy says, well, it does good here, but it doesn't do good there, then finding that information out just helps you get better.
So you're actually visiting a lot of these engine builders, or at least talking with them to see like what kind of specs they're using, what kind of clearances they're using, what they see as far as like contamination damage or whatever else that may be that may cause failures or work well. So you're taking all that information and kind of compiling it for your own product.
Yes, that's correct. And it also gives us an indication of whether we need to upgrade a material.
Okay.
King has lots of materials to use to make a bearing out of. So if we see something going on with a certain product and an application where, we need to upgrade that, that is a sort of a crucial time to find that out, and from talking to people and then upgrade it. Because let's just face it, everything is getting in racing engines are getting more powerful every year. They're not getting less powerful, they're getting more.
Right.
So RPMs are getting higher. Loading is getting higher. The conditions are getting higher. Thinner oils, tighter clearances. So you have to build in for all those different parameters out there that you got to deal with, the operating conditions in the racing world. No matter what sport it is, you got to deal with debris. You got to deal with load, low viscosity oil, all those things. So that helps you to decide what you need to do next to come in with the next generation of material, or actually do a new application of material.
Okay.
So just change it from one material to another, and that would should help you with better performance down the road.
This would be a whole nother podcast by itself, but it'd be really interesting to hear how the tolerances and clearances and bearing materials and structure has changed over the last 50 years or 40 years.
Yes.
That'd be a really cool story to hear, huh?
Yeah, there's been many improvements in material. King probably has the best inventory of different materials to go to that they've already developed. We have a R&D research guy in Israel. He's a doctor, and he's a metals guy. So he knows all about materials. He knows what to put together to do this, to do that. I learn a lot from him, and then I apply that to the product or the suggestion of a new product. So that works very well, and he's a very smart individual, and writes a lot of technical papers for King. You've probably seen those.
Okay.
His name is Dr. Dimitri,
Okay.
and he does a lot for King. He's been here ever since I've been here, and I think he's probably been around I don't know, 10 or 12 years all total.
Okay.
But very smart guy.
Okay. I wanted to pause for a second to thank our sponsors here, and then we'll continue talking about King. We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. Okay, Ron, we're here talking about King here, and it's a pretty big operation, right? So how you have a facility in Israel and you have facilities in the States. Like, how many people are working for it?
King all total has about 250 employees.
Okay.
It's not very big.
Okay.
All the manufacturing is done in Israel.
Okay.
The main headquarters is located in Israel.
Okay.
So the only thing that they don't do over there is they don't slit any steel. They buy the steel already in coils to make the bearing strip.
Okay.
So they've got branches in different parts of the world. I'm part of the USA branch. There's a Turkey branch. There's a Brazilian branch, and they've just recently acquired a new plant or a new company in Siberia that makes. I'm sorry, Serbia.
Okay, Serbia.
I misspoke that. Serbia. They make powder, which we use to make bearing material with.
Okay.
So before we were buying the powder, and now we own the factory that produces the powder. We're also trying to find out other products we can make with the powdered metal.
Okay.
So we're kind of, the company's researching that as we speak, and I don't really know much detail there, but I knew they're looking at it.
Okay, so some level of vertical integration within the company then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is your role specifically, and what does your job entail?
Well, my job is, as you probably have just sort of heard me talking here, is in the performance world, racing. I try to keep on top of that to make sure our product works good, which is what I've done for 35 plus years in the bearing world, and then also to answer the tech call, help answer the tech calls, AJ, and then we have another guy in the New Jersey office. They do the frontline answering. If there's anything that they don't have an answer for, can't answer, they usually send it to me. If a guy's got a real particular situation that he needs a lot of help on, then they'll send that to me. But offering technical assistance, training, I go out and train our sales reps, which are commission reps. We don't have direct salespeople.
Okay.
So they need some help with specific customers now and then. Guy's got a problem with something and they really can't answer it, so they call me and they get me on the phone with him. I do some technical writing as well to talk about our products and so forth.
Okay.
So that's kind of the gist of it. I also look at bearing failures. If there's any guy wants to know what's going on with his bearings, I'll look at them. If I don't have the information or the skills to know what we need to do to find the answer, I'll send that on to Israel, and then they'll do a further diagnosis there, and then we'll get back to the customer. So I'm kind of the interface there between the customer and the factory.
Okay. But
I can answer probably 60% of them, myself, because I've seen almost just about anything out there that's happened to a bearing.
So you're the king of diagnosing problems, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you guys obviously have the performance division. Do you do like OE work for the like Ford, Chevy, any of those people, or is it all like OE replacement stuff?
It's pretty much King is pretty much aftermarket. There are some OE contracts and sales in Israel and Europe.
Okay.
We don't have any deal with like Ford or Chrysler or any of the domestic brands here in
Okay.
the U.S. But we mostly make OE replacement. We make high performance
Uh-huh.
bearings. The company also makes aviation bearings as well
Okay.
in Israel. So we handle some accounts from here. If you companies like Lycoming, Continental, they use a shell bearing like we manufacture, and so we have some aviation contracts.
Okay.
So as you know, building parts for airplanes, you got to be on your game.
Right. There's a lot of I guess you could say requirements for airplanes far beyond
Yes.
what you'd get for a race engine.
Yeah, a lot more restrictions, a lot more rules to follow,
Yeah.
a lot more specifications to follow, and so forth to be able to do that. So, I mean, when you're making aviation parts, you've got something going in your manufacturing and your quality control and product development.
Okay. And how many people are reporting to you?
I don't really have any direct, as you would put on an organizational chart.
Okay.
AJ and I work together, and Mike is also another guy that's in there doing social media stuff.
Mhm.
We all worked as a team. Actually, the sales manager that I mentioned earlier, we all work as a group here. We get our heads together, but I don't really have any direct reports that I could say that he's, when you
Okay.
look at an organizational chart, I don't have that. But we work very closely together to develop the product and so forth. So no really direct reports.
Okay. And how many hours a week do you end up working?
Oh, golly, from 40 to 50, I would say is kind of the average.
Okay. So you're not having to do like the 80-hour a week thing. It's you can
No.
keep it to normal working hours, huh?
Well, when you consider if you go out of town, if you want to consider being gone as a working hours you can count, maybe so then. But if I'm not on the road traveling, then I'm in my office and generally from 8 to 5. And I'm home this week, but was gone last week, and I'll be gone next week to visit more customers and so forth on the West Coast. So I'd say 40 to 50 is an average amount of hours that I work.
Do you have a family?
Yes, I do.
And does
I have a
that
wife.
affect your work schedule?
No, not really.
Okay, sorry, I cut you off. You said you had a wife.
Yeah, I have a wife, and we have all of our kids are gone.
Okay.
Of course, it's just a wife and I and two dogs and a cat.
Okay.
That's really all we have on our property, and so my wife takes care of the place while I'm gone and so forth. So it doesn't really. I've traveled all my career, so it's really just it's nothing.
She understands it and has lived with it, so.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you find that the pay justifies the time spent?
Well, I could always want more pay. I think so. It's pretty close. My wife says, well, maybe you should ask for a raise. I said, well, I don't know, but I'm doing okay.
Okay. And it's funny because the aftermarket, I guess, performance world is it's so cutthroat and everybody wants to be involved in it. It kind of drives everybody's wages down and their hours up. So that's traditionally you don't make lots of money in this industry, I guess is what we're getting at. But it's fun, right? So if the enjoyment out of it is worth it, then it doesn't really matter what you get paid, right?
No, when you enjoy what you're doing, that makes everything much easier. I get paid fine. I'm not really. I'd like to have more money, but I'm doing okay. But when anybody is deciding what they want to do for their life's work, they need to have a passion for whatever it is. So find that passion and then go for it. I just happened with me, everything kind of fell into place. And I got involved in that way early, and it just clicked. So I would advise anybody course, the automotive aftermarket is not something that is really booming in a general sense, because let's face it, the OEMs are building great cars nowadays.
Uh-huh.
They don't hardly break. Engines lasting are doubling their life with what they used to be.
Okay.
Way back in say the 80s and 90s. An engine now goes 200,000 miles without even blinking an eye.
Yeah.
And by that time you're tired of the car, and you get rid of it.
Yep.
And get another one. So it's not like it used to be way back in when 80,000 miles you needed a rebuild. It's not booming like other industries are, but it's still kind of maintaining status quo, and when you get into the racing world, it's kind of like all brand new. A guy's building a racing engine. If you get hooked up with a lot of them and get involved, then your volume can increase there.
Yeah.
So I'd say that probably, just to give you some stats there, our high performance sales of the total company is probably 35%.
Okay.
Of our volume.
Is that growing then, or is that?
Yeah, it's growing. Yes,
okay.
It is. In fact, I just got an email today that said that we had the best March ever. We hit $1 million in the month of March.
Okay, that's a lot of bearings.
Of sales, bearing sales dollars. So we are growing because we are really standing up and taking notice of what's going on out there. We're making good stuff, and we're beginning to promote better. We're promoting more. We do a lot of another one of my duties is I do webinars on the computer for certain organizations out there, AERA, PERA. These are engine rebuilding organizations, and we get a chance to convey some of our new stuff on there. Talk about why bearings, how bearings work, what causes problems, and so on. So that's another thing I get involved in sometimes. But I go out and do seminars at trade shows.
PRI probably being the big one.
PRI, AETC, that happens the same week during PRI.
Okay.
We are trying to do something with SEMA, but so far I haven't worked anything out yet. But so we also are involved in other technical trade shows out there that we try to get on board to do a presentation. So we're learning to get out in front of the public and talk about our products more. That's really what's helping us a lot. Plus we do some magazine advertising. We're taking advantage of other professional magazines that are wanting articles written about bearings. So there's a lot of places where we're going to get the name King out there and to get more visibility.
And we found that what you're talking about is exactly the best bang for your buck as marketing is value adding, like talking about the product and not just trying to sell it. You're describing how it works and what it needs to do to be successful, and the technology behind it and all the development time, and talking about that is pretty much more important than just say, hey, come and buy our bearings, they're on sale, sort of, doesn't seem to be very effective anymore.
No, it doesn't. No. Particularly racing engine builders want to know all the particulars. The general market is, okay, just give me something that works. The racing engine builder wants to know all the ins and outs of your product, why it does this, why it does that. They want to know, tell me about your new material. What's that going to help me with? And so forth. Application is part of that too. Having the right bearing at the right time for that engine guy. So all this technical information, the public in the racing world, they want to know it.
Mm-hmm.
And the traditional market is just give me a bearing that's going to fix my engine, that helps me go to the grocery store and back. And that's it. It's just kind of like a commodity.
Right.
But in the racing world, it's really a specific product for a specific application, and those guys want to know that. And that's what drives them towards you if you give them that information. The other thing too is the product has to work too. So you tell all about it, and then you have to really, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. You have to make sure that it does do what you say it does.
Do you find that the technology that you put into the racing bearings applies or transfers over to the like general OE replacement stuff?
Yeah. We have some materials that we've learned how they work. Then if we're kind of on the edge with a traditional type bearing, the material, we may say, well, we maybe need to upgrade that to this other material based on what we're learning from the racing side. Because as I said earlier, loading is getting more and more. The engines coming out today in the OEM world are more powerful. They're smaller. They produce more torque. They're running with thinner oil. They're running hotter too. So there's all things are stacking up against the OEM bearing too. Yep. So, and then we've got the new coating bearing, coating bearing coming out this year. We announced it at PRI and SEMA, and we've been making a lot of magazine articles on that. We're publishing one now in Engine, I think it's called Engine Professional, about all the racing materials, including coatings and so forth. So you have to just get that information out, and then you have to tell the end user, this is how my bearing is going to help you. It's going to give you more load capacity. It's going to, if I have a coated product, it's going to help with anti-seizure problems. It's going to help with wear, because the oils are very thin. Even in the racing world, the oils are getting thin. Mm-hmm. Some of the oils they're using now are just like pouring water out of a glass. It just is it's so thin. So a bearing has to compensate for all that. Really, a bearing is a compromise between operating conditions and performance. Okay. And one bearing material works good here, another bearing material works good there. So, and then we're trying to tell the customer which one is correct for his application. So we get a lot of calls about that, because we do have two high performance bearing product materials. One is a bimetal aluminum, and the other one's a trimetal copper lead. So being that we have two, then the guy wants to know, well, which one should I use for my application? So that's another thing that we have to convey to the customer, the end user, in order to know which one to choose.
Okay. So talk to us about product development. Like, can you kind of walk us through the steps of it? So the first part obviously is determining what vehicle you need to make it for. So you said you're pulling production numbers of the vehicle, or maybe the engine particulars. How do you determine what you want to develop a product for?
Performance is really keeping close tabs on the market, talking to guys, professional high performance engine builders, talking to them, seeing what they need, what's working, what's not working. We also look at our competitors, just like everybody else looks at theirs. We look and see what they're offering, how they're offering it, which way, what's the specification. We'll look at it. We'll look at the OEM spec on it, and then we'll make some changes there that maybe need to be made necessary for the performance world. Maybe we get more eccentricity. Maybe we give more crush height. Maybe we need to narrow the bearing down so that it fits inside some of the crankshafts that are being produced with the big heavy fillets in them. The bearing needs to be either chamfered or narrowed.
Okay.
So we got to determine that because we don't want our bearing running into the fillet.
Yep.
If you have fillet ride, you're just gonna burn the bearing up, and you're gonna have a problem. So either we do it or the customer does it. We try to get the best information we can because there's aftermarket crankshafts out there.
Right.
There's really no standard on what they do.
Which makes it all the harder for you, right?
Which makes it harder. So we just kind of, we get the customer to check. Well, tell us what do you think the width can be for that crank, and so we have to plan for really the biggest fillet out there because we want our part to work with every one of them, if possible. But occasionally we run into one every now and then that's going to hit. So that's another specification we have to work out and during our development process. So it's really in that sense, it's really just talking to the customer, talking to the end user. We get a lot of feedback there and it takes somebody to talk to these people and to get out there and get the information and bring it all back together and say, okay, this is how we need to configure this bearing. It needs to do this, and this, and then put it together, and then come up with a part number. We determine the material. We also have a process in-house that is it's designed like where we gather information from the market. We do a load test. We gather a lot of data to do a load test in a computer program. So if I'm going to have a new engine and let's just say it's going to make 1,500 horsepower, I need to know what material to make that bearing out of to accept that kind of loading. So we feed a lot of data into this program, and the customer gives us all that. He gives us all the engine data, the bore and the stroke, the firing order, the what type of, is it blown or is it direct injection? Is it alcohol? What's the fuel? All these parameters we plug in, and we can determine what the loading is going to be, predetermine what the loading is going to be, and that's how we select the material.
So you're running computer simulation essentially. Yeah,
we're using a system that we have in-house called NSIM. It stands for Engine Simulation. It's our program. Our Dr. Dimitri was
proprietary sort of thing.
Very instrumental in writing the program to determine how the output of the engine is going to affect the bearings.
Okay.
So whatever the engine does, the bearing has got to be able to take it. And that's if the bearings don't operate, your engine's not going to work. It's going to fail.
Okay.
So
how do you go about testing it to see if they're not going to fail? So once you've done the simulations, and then I'm guessing you are testing these on a dyno, or you just give them to the customers and letting them test it for you.
We have two in-house validation testing methods. We have a simulation. We have a machine that simulates a combustion engine.
Okay.
It actually it's actually electric powered, and it loads the bearing like that bearing would see the load in an engine. And we run it for long periods of time, and we actually try to tear it up is what we do.
Right.
We see what it can take. If it goes past what we determine the load factor is, then we know we've got a pretty good match there. We also can put this material or this test it into a regular engine dynamometer. So an actual running engine, burning fuel, making load, making power, then we can test it there. The next step is we build a prototype. We build a prototype of that configuration, and then we get some real world racers, engine builders to test it, to put it in their engine. We'll supply it, so on and so forth. And then we work with some oil companies also to do some testing with. We deal with some other aftermarket companies that run dynamometer testing themselves. So I've hooked up with them to get, we'll supply bearings for your test because they're testing something else. They may be testing cylinder heads. They may be testing valve train, camshaft, blocks, whatever.
So you're sending them bearings to give you data?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we let they got to have a product to use. So hey, let us supply you the bearings, and we'll get test data off of it.
That's a great idea. That's the cheapest way to get test data, right?
Yeah. And then we got the real world where the engine is actually in a race vehicle racing out on the track. And if all that proves good, then we are confident that this product is going to be the right product for the market at that time.
Okay. All right. So talk to us about how, if somebody wanted to get involved in this industry, I mean, what does the company look for? Are you guys looking for education, or is it like a skill? Are you looking for engine builders to work for you guys, or what is it? What is the, like, when you hire people, what do you look for?
Well, on the technical side, we look for people that are really have an interest in automotive. As they say, we're looking for car guys. We like to have car guys because we know that if you like the product you're working with, if you like automotive, then and you're dealing with an automotive product, then you have a lot of passion for it. That gives the person some extra drive there to work with it. I mean, AJ and I, we work together, and Mike and Phil, our sales manager, national sales manager, we all are car guys. Okay. We talk about cars. We kind of live and eat it and breathe it. So I think that's very important. Plus, you got to have some knowledge. You got to have some mechanical skills to know how these things work. And in my case, I've learned it over time. And I know how an engine operates. I know, the guy talks to me about a certain thing, I know what he's talking about. So you've got to have that information there, and the person that we're looking for needs to have that drive to go in there and be passionate about it, to work it. I mean, if you can't just bring like an accounting type guy and expect him to know that, unless he just likes cars. But,
right. Okay.
We sort of have to have a mechanical mind.
Yeah, exactly. You're not like hiring people that, or it's not like, I'm going to apply for a job at a garbage can manufacturer, right? It's not something you're passionate about, but cars is definitely the case where you're looking for people that are passionate. Okay. Yeah. So I want to talk more about yourself here. What's something that you struggle with in business, and how do you deal with it?
I guess one thing that we do struggle with sometimes is being able to meet the delivery schedules that we set for ourselves.
Okay.
That's a struggle there with the company to have the product available when we say it's going to be.
That's definitely that's common with everybody.
Yeah, I know. It's a struggle for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, we're working with a production schedule in Israel, and we tell our guy here that we'll have it in 2 months, and then it turns out to be we actually came with it in 4 months.
Yeah.
So that's a struggle there. But like I said earlier, the company is growing pretty rapidly. So as you do that, you are putting more demands on your manufacturing, and as you do that, some things get slowed up.
Yep.
If you have any, you have to also allow for equipment maintenance and breakage and so forth and so on to slow you down. So that's just a fact of life in making parts, that you're going to break stuff, and so you have to deal with all that. So I guess with the growth that we have, the biggest frustration we have is being able to have the product, when we say it's going to, when we need it.
Okay.
But it's going to get better. The plant has expanded their floor space. We've added 30% more building on some other tools that's going to help us make bearings faster and faster.
So you guys recognize the problem and you're addressing it. So it's not like it's not just a bunch of people like, whatever, we're never going to do anything about it.
No, we're trying. I mean, the company is wants to grow, and they're taking steps to make it happen. So that's kind of the bottom line.
Okay. So tell me about yourself. What is your 1-year plan?
My 1-year plan is to have, let's say, some new products out there that are going to meet the demand for. We're working on some new stuff. I want to have the full line of the coated bearings out there, to sell. Hopefully we'll have that by the end of the year. So that's kind of my 1-year thing right now, is to have all the coated bearings that we say we're going to have out there. And we're a little slow right now, but we're coming along. And as I said, we announced it at PRI and SEMA last year. So we're starting to get people calling in. I guess what you could say that we're kind of building demand right now with it.
Are you guys doing the coatings yourself, or is that outsourced?
That's a good question. We are doing our own coating. Dr. Dimitri developed this coating. We studied everything on the market. We took into consideration what we needed the product to do. What is a coated bearing supposed to do? And we designed towards that. We designed against wear. We also designed the bearing to be to have no added thickness to it.
Okay.
So we're developing the product to have no added thickness, and that's going to be important for the engine builder, because we've already heard good feedback about that. Because
if you do aftermarket, you're adding thickness to the bearing, huh?
Yeah, some of the other bearing suppliers are adding thickness, which the engine builder has to compensate for when he builds his engine. If he's looking for a certain amount of oil clearance, then he knows that he's going to be with a coated bearing, it's going to be tightened up a little bit. We're going to have no added thickness, where if you're used to using an uncoated bearing, you're going to have the same clearance that you had before with a coated bearing.
Very cool.
We feel like that's a really a good advantage to have over the other competitors, and also the fact that we're actually doing it ourselves. We have a committed part number to that.
And then, are you guys doing that across all your bearing types, or is that just specific uses, like specific engines?
Right now, it's specifically pinpointed to racing bearing part numbers. And then we'll expand. We'll have to expand our numbers as we go along. I predict that, because if you have stuff that works, people are going to want it, and in other numbers that maybe we haven't even thought of right now. But we're going to have to address those things as we go, because you got to get it out there. You got to develop a demand for it, and then find out where other places you can go with it.
And we like to take action and do it for a living. Can you suggest an action item that our listeners can take away to improve their situation?
An action item. Do your homework is probably the best advice if you're talking about being in product development.
Okay.
Study the market, do all those things that I've been talking about all along here. Make sure you get the right information. Decipher the information that the people give you. Make sure that it's across the board type demand for a product. These onesies and twosies are nice, but that doesn't help you sell a lot of volume. So when you listen to enough people and you hear it enough times, you begin to feel like that's what you should do. But get out there and in product development is talk to people, get involved in what your product is. Make sure that you listen to those people, what they say, take all that information in, and then again, I said, look at your competitors, because you're going to be out there selling against someone else. That's not really the deciding factor, because you could have done a better job of studying the market than the other guy did, but don't just do it because the other guy did it.
Okay.
Make sure you have your own reasons for doing it. That'd be a good action item there too. Put your own data together. Just be sure, just as best possible, that this is going to be something that you need to do. It's going to create sales for the company. and so forth. So I'd say, as far as an action item, that's what I would recommend in the product development area.
And I'm sure this is the case quite often, is that if you look at the data properly and look at it from an objective eye, that you might see that something is not worth developing or isn't going to work, right?
Yeah. A lot of it is how many guys have talked about this? How many guys? Just recently, we developed some oversized housing bearings because we listen to people. There's one case in point here. The Subaru engine is, of course, everybody knows that the split case block. That engine is it's aluminum. It can produce a lot of horsepower. So we listened to customers that were asking for an oversized OD bearing, because being a split case, they couldn't shave the block halves very easily to get to close the hole up so you could rebore it like a traditional cap onto a block or cap onto a rod.
Okay.
You had to shave the entire block. That was a very laborious process to do that. So many people didn't do it. They just went and got a new block. But we made oversized OD bearings so that the guy can bolt the block together, an old block, go in there and either line bore or line hone the new size, and you've got a brand new block.
Okay.
This is especially true if you've done a lot of other work on that block to make it a racing block. You probably have done some other things. So if you get rid of it, you've lost all that too. So getting an oversized bearing for that engine was very successful for us. And then we did it because we listened.
Okay.
We listened to, it wasn't something that we copied from OEM. OEM didn't have it. We said, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And then we had to determine what sizes to go with and so on and so forth. So it's just, you got to do all that research steps to get all the data you need and all the customer information, customer input, and all that.
Okay. And what do you think the future of automotive performance is going to be?
The future of automotive performance, I just think it's going to get bigger. Racing is a spectator sport that's growing. There's all different kinds of motorsports out there that's growing. There's some that I haven't even heard of myself, probably, but I'm learning more each day. You say, "Oh man, I didn't know they raced those things, and I didn't know they did that with that engine." It's just like you learn all the time what's going on with racing, because racing is a sport for the actual participant. It's a sport for the spectator. It just has a lot of benefits. So I think the performance world is really growing in my opinion right now.
Okay.
There's so many different companies out there that are building all kinds of little niche parts for every vehicle, for certain vehicles, so forth. So you got the performance diesel market is exploding. Pickup trucks, guys putting turbos on their Power Strokes and their Duramaxes, making all kinds of power. So again, all these developments in building more power puts more stress on the bearings, and so we have to keep up with that, because if they're doubling the horsepower out of that engine, well, guess what? The bearing has got to get better too.
And so it can basically, your sales directly correlates to how well the automotive performance industry is doing, because you're essentially in every single engine, right?
Yeah, it's very healthy in my opinion.
Okay.
Right now, and we're growing a lot in that market, faster than the other markets that we're in.
Okay.
So we've got to keep up there, and it takes a lot of attention to detail, keeping your ear to the ground to learn about this or that, whatever. So motorsports, I would say, is on the move up.
Okay. So Ron, how do we connect with you in the company?
The best way to connect with me is you can go through our website, kingbearings.com. There's some tabs in there that you can click inquiry. If you want to ask a question about the King product line, do an inquiry.
Well, Ron, I really wanted to thank you for taking some time and sharing your story and telling us about bearings.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this, Kevin, sharing with what, all the experience I've had over my career in getting stuff made and kind of living a dream, really. I can say that I have been, and it's not really work for me because I enjoy doing it.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app, tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe,